Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Good to see you guys again. Got people in the chat coming with it. Just wanted to shout some of y'all out real quick. Much appreciated. Shout out to Brotherly Love. What's good, D? Brother Malika, what's happening? Much appreciation to Christopher Williams for that early donation. Remember, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will. So we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. So Christopher is the first one in the game to do that today. It is much appreciated. Also, shout out to Greg for the Cash App. Right? What's up, Ron? See a few people in here. Mark in here early. What's good? Shout out to Brandon S. Penn for the early support. Malika for the support as well. Much appreciated. Christopher Williams again dropping it. Much appreciation. Thank you. Hey, Rue in the house. What's going on? Peace to you too. Thank you for that support. Indigo Flow. Much appreciated. Joe, hit me up later. I'll send you the link. But good to see you guys up in here. Appreciate the early support. Oh man, got a lot to do. Classes start back this week, so juggling, all kinds of stuff, creating new syllabi. Got a new class to teach, so it's going to be an interesting semester. It's going to be interesting. Um, so yeah, so Real Boss says caught you live on time, man. Well, I'm running a little later than I usually have been, but things have been a little crazy lately, so I'm getting it back in. But I appreciate the support. So today we're going to talk about a variety of experiences that are both direct and indirect in regard to how Black men have been treated recently, particularly by Black women. And there's something I want to say about that. But I'm actually going to hit you with about 9 different things that recently came out that I want you guys to reflect on. Before I do, make sure again that you support the show so we can continue to bring you what you need. And as well, don't forget to support the Onyx Network, which you can download on iPhone, Android, Amazon Fire TV, or Roku. So make sure that you support both of those, right? So we're going to try a few different things here. We'll see if my system cooperates. Some of these things I don't care about the sound. Some of them I do. So y'all know, we just got to do it one at a time. So these are random bits, some videos, some articles, just to kind of get some things put on the table for us to glance at. So this is a clip that a good brother sent me on Facebook. This is apparently from Tubi, I believe. And it's just a clip. We shall see. I have no idea if you guys will hear it, but here we go. So it's a very brief clip. And you guys let me know if you can hear it when I start to play it. So let's see.
You take your ass down and get that damn job?
No, I didn't.
Fuck me, where's your voice at?
Hey. I don't know if you guys could hear that at all. Let me know. You could. All right. Appreciate that, Black Insurgent. So just a clip, just a very short clip, right? And I didn't even need the context. And the boy and my, the good brother who sent it to me understood that as well. Just the clip, right? So basically, she hits him in the head with a pot because he refused to, because of the way he spoke to her, he refused to, he didn't look for a job or whatever. But then the person recording it, and I don't think this is the brother who sent it to me, I think he just pulled it, was laughing. And that kind of led me to the title of tonight's show, right? When Black women can abuse and delete you, and even you don't care. Because one of the things I noticed when I posted a number of these things in social media in the last few weeks, the first people laughing were Black men, right? We are so unaccustomed to being treated well. Disrespect is so, frequently a part of our experience. It's like oxygen at this point. We don't even process it. It's just part of our daily reality. We're the first to laugh at it. We're the first to dismiss it. Abuse. Now, this was a fictitious presentation of it, but that in and of itself says something as far as I'm concerned. When you can actually have parodies and clips and television shows and skits and on social media that are so common when it comes to dismissing Black men, disrespecting Black men, killing Black men, abusing Black men, and even Black men don't even care. It's gotten to the point where it's almost just indistinguishable between some of these skits on social media and real clips. Some of them are almost indistinguishable. But the thing about it is, when I share clips, I don't even care that they're clips. I don't care that they're skits. Excuse me. I don't care, because to me, the issues being shown are real enough. I've known too many men. I've heard too many stories over the decades, not the months, not the years, over the decades that are reflective of this. This is one of the reasons these skits on social media are so popular, or these kinds of clips from television shows, because they're common. But we don't talk about it like that. And many of us haven't been socialized to report it as abuse. So my suspicion, just like feminists argue when it comes to women, is that the abuse of men is highly underreported. And I think it reflects in some of the data. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Still, these are the kind of things that I see on a regular basis, right? As Black Insurgent says in the chat, domestic abuse is funny when it happens to us. Real talk, right? So that's one of the first things that really caught me, was how common this was, how easily it was portrayed in a media clip and how people responded to it with laughter and dismissal. Right? Let's try another one. Right, now this one is from a talk show, and mind you, when it comes to all of these fair use, right? Fair use. This one comes from a talk show, and I'm definitely going to need to see some ones if you can hear it. I'm gonna play the whole clip, and we'll see if you guys can make it out.
I want another male on my daughters, our daughters' birth certificate.
Yes.
Are you crazy?
Okay, so tell me, could you guys hear that? Just that little clip. Please appreciate you, Clarence, for the support. Okay, so I got a 1. Beautiful. All right, so let's try this again. Just back up a little bit, and I want you guys to watch how this goes. This is a talk show, apparently, and we'll see how this goes.
Another male on my daughters, our daught's birth certificate.
Yes.
Are you
That's why
crazy?
she didn't put me on a birth certificate.
You a liar. You's a liar.
So why didn't
I'm
you
a
put him on the
liar.
birth certificate?
Because he didn't have an ID, so it's no way that he could have
I
gotten
had
her.
an ID. I had all of them things, and she whipped them up because she wanted to be spiteful. Now, what woman would do that to the man of their child?
Hold on, I got to get back to that. You said that she ripped up your documents?
Yes.
What documents are you talking about?
My birth certificate, my social, and I had a paper copy ID.
And you ripped those up?
I absolutely did, because if you
You see?
It's the clarity in that for me. I absolutely did. Right. I absolutely did.
I want another.
Now, the reason, I just want to be clear right here. The reason I played that clip was not just about the fact that she ripped up the ID, he couldn't sign the birth certificate for his child, but more so the audience reaction and the show host's reaction. Nobody held her accountable. They laughed, right? They applauded her. He's the butt of the joke. And this reflects on you, because this is how people see you. This is how people see us, right? But it's acceptable. And again, nobody cared. Exactly, Malika. Everybody just laughed. And this brother's sitting there going, trying to plead his case, trying to put that out there. Nobody cared, right? Let's check out another. Now this one, I'm not going to play the sound on. Let me see. Let's see. Maybe I should go. Not that one. There we go. So we will try this one. And again, I'm not tripping on the sound this time, but I do want you guys to see what's going on with this. So I'll walk you through it. You haven't seen it. So this is a clip at what I think is a pizza joint. And you can see there's a black woman who's walked in fatigues, back of the line. She immediately pushes her way all the way to the front of the line. Right? Pushes herself to the front of the line. There you go. Right? And from there, there's one gentleman that gets on the phone and calls somebody to talk about it. And she gets in his face. Right? She gets in his face because he has mentioned the fact that she's done it. And then she leaves. Now, anybody that gets in your face like that and then turns around and leaves, that should tell you something right away. Something's about to jump off. And I'm going to actually name this term as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to call this pit bullying. So she gets into an argument with, I think that's the owner or the manager, right, about cutting the line. She spits in his face. He gets out in front and confronts her, right? Nobody's touched her, right? She gets in his face. He backs off. But look who comes in after. This is who she went out to get in the first place. Her boyfriend, right? This is what I'm now calling pit bullying. This is when you are being sicked on people. So at this point, she points out the guy who got on the phone to talk about the fact that she cut the line. She just hit the dude in the face. She just hit him in the back. He's frustrated. He throws his phone down. But her boyfriend, who she brought through, takes up for her and knocks him out. Starts to hit him. Right? Yep. Now, the problem with this kind of thing, though, is you see he's still hitting the dude. He's still hitting the dude. The dude didn't touch her. He barely spoke to her. Knocked him out. He can't even stand. Now she's going to come get him. Now, did you see the way she grabbed his collar? She grabbed his collar and pulled him out like you would a pit bull. And he's even pulling back from her. She grabs him again and has the nerve to say, "Come on, baby." Now, some people are, of course, applauding because, a black man protected a black woman because that's what we're supposed to do, right? But I think we've misunderstood what protection is. She wasn't under threat. Nobody hurt her. She initiated 2 unnecessary conflicts in a restaurant from the moment she walked in. And then from there, decided to pull her boyfriend in to act as a pit bull on her behalf, right? On her behalf, which did nothing. But I'll tell you one thing I should say it did. It got him 4 years in jail. He got 4 years in jail for that occurrence. And it's interesting to wonder who was there to pick him up when he got out. And I'd say it'd be a downer either way, whether it was her or not. If she did come, that just means you in line for more bullshit. If she didn't come, you just wasted 4 years of your life protecting a woman that ain't even there for you. Like, either way, it doesn't go well. That's what I call pit bullying, right? And we let ourselves, in certain circumstances, be used in that way. See, back in the day, I'm talking about pre-1960s, you get stories like this of black men protecting black women. But here's one of the differences. Black women actually, in many instances, took the protection of fathers, boyfriends, husbands, brothers, cousins, uncles. They took that seriously because they understood that a black man standing up for you, especially in the face of white men, meant that somebody could very easily lose their lives. So it wasn't an arbitrary thing. There are many women that took that seriously, and some went to their grave having been violated in ways that they shouldn't have had to be. But they didn't tell the men they loved because they knew those men would go operate on their behalf and maybe lose their lives doing so. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have said anything. What I'm saying is they made those decisions very carefully to protect the men who are protecting them. They carefully chose which circumstances to ask for those men's protection. It was done with respect. Did that altercation look at all respectful to you? She didn't see him as a human being. She saw him as a pit bull, and he allowed himself to do that. And many of us have been raised to do it. This isn't just one of those things where somebody just wakes up and you just decide to do this. This is a conditioning that many of us have been extended since childhood. We've been conditioned to respond like this when it comes to protecting, so to speak, or really being used as an assassin of sorts on others' behalf. I'm going to draw these together in a minute, but we're still going. That's just a couple of them. We got a few more to go. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but you'll see where I'm going in a minute. So here's another you might find interesting. They may not seem connected at first, but you'll see. This is an article you can find in CNN. This is dated February 2nd, 2020. A Detroit woman bit off a man's tongue after she asked him not to use it while kissing, but he did anyway. There you go. Eulette Wedgeworth, 52 years old, was charged with aggravated assault after police said she bit off a man's tongue while kissing. Let you go ahead and absorb that a little bit. CNN, a Detroit man is recovering after a woman he was kissing bit off his tongue, according to the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office. Wedgeworth, 52, and the man were engaged in a consensual kiss on January 28th. When the incident occurred, police and prosecutors allege she had asked him not to put his tongue in her mouth. When he did anyway, she bit it off. Right? Police responded to the incident and found the man bleeding from his mouth and missing about 1 inch of his tongue. Prosecutor's office said, "I believe this is the first case of this nature in my 27 years in the prosecutor's office," Smith said in the statement. Police were able to recover the man's tongue in his apartment bedroom. He was transported to an area hospital, and Wedgeworth was taken into custody without further incident. There was no immediate word of the man's condition. Wedgeworth was charged with aggravated assault, a misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. A pretrial conference is scheduled for February 19th. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Hit the like button if you will. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate Again, support the show if you would. Yeah, that's it. She bit his tongue off. You know, she didn't lecture him. She didn't decide to remove herself from the situation. I don't know if this was a prostitute situation. Don't know what it was. But at the end of the day, the fact that I have to say that he doesn't deserve to have his tongue bit off because he didn't do something she wanted is ridiculous. You know that the equivalent of that is if you've ever had a woman extending oral to you and her teeth graze you. Now, I don't know any man that hasn't had that experience at least once, as long as they've ever had oral. And you remove a part of her body for it. See, the funny part is when I post this, people laugh. And of course, other men not only laugh alongside other groups of people who are laughing, but then we turn around and we lecture about what kind of stupid mistakes we make. And that's one of the things we do, especially in the manosphere, right? Rather self-critique. And I'm not against that. If we can improve our condition by making better decisions, I'm all for it. What I don't want to see happen is where we are comfortable ridiculing each other and leaving it at that. Even some of you are talking about what he shouldn't have done and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, nothing in this means that he deserves to have a part of his body bitten off. And I tell my son this very same thing. If you're confused about how a situation goes down, reverse the genders and ask the same question. If a woman put her tongue in your mouth when you were kissing and you'd asked her not to and you bit her tongue off, how would that be received? Most particularly by the mainstream popular public. Would it be an acceptable response to not wanting to be kissed a certain way? Maybe you shouldn't be kissing that person at all if it's going to go there. But how many people are willing to say that? No, they just laugh at the fact that this man got his tongue bit off. And that becomes the end of the situation. That becomes the end analysis of something like this article. And we're comfortable with that. Again, we're comfortable with it. I'm tired of being comfortable with it. That's the point I'm trying to get to. Now, some of you guys may have seen this next one. This was popular a little while ago, right? Here you have a woman who's arguing with her date, her man, not particularly sure what the circumstances of their relationship are. This is at a bowling alley. They're in each other's faces arguing. He did not raise his hand. He didn't put hands on her. Appreciate that support, actual proof. Let's see what happened.
Oh, shit! God damn!
A viral video where a couple gets in an intense argument at a bowling alley. The woman then hits her man in the head with a bowling ball, then proceeds to bowls a strike.
Hit that strike! Roll it! Roll a strike! That nigga sleep is over. Oh!
Everyone at the scene was laughing and praising the woman, while the guy was seriously injured. This does makes you wonder, what if the roles were reversed?
So if you could see that, he's getting up. I'd heard in one instance he might have had his eye socket broken. Not really sure. But I can tell you this much, he could have died. And even the guy recording the video is laughing, right? Telling her to roll a strike. And it's a joke. And of course, people are laughing. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody post a comment. I wonder what he did to upset her. Like that's justifiable. But this has become acceptable when it comes to black men. They're the butt of the joke, and even other black men laugh at it. But in any other circumstance with any other group, this would be called abuse, because it is. But somehow it's acceptable, and we're okay with it, as if none of this matters. Right? Now, as I said, some of the stuff is going to be direct, some of this stuff is going to be indirect as it relates to what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to be playing this one here. We're going to try the sound thing again, but because I'm playing this one on Facebook, I've had problems with this. Give me a 1 if you can hear this woman's voice, just real quick. Okay, let me know if you guys heard that at all. Give me a 0 if you didn't. Give me a 1 if you did. Okay, so Insurgent says no. Yeah, see, this is how these things go for some reason. Not even sure why. Yeah. See, this is, as far as my system is concerned, you should be able to hear it. but for some reason it doesn't come through. So I'll just read what's on the screen and show you the image that we're dealing with. The young lady here, right? North Miami Beach mother accused of fatally stabbing 3-year-old daughter. South Florida mother tried to strangle her 3-year-old daughter before fatally stabbing her instead. Jaleesa Baxter, 24, of North Miami Beach, was arrested Tuesday on charges of first-degree murder and aggravated child abuse. Might as well go to the article itself. I wanted you guys to hear the clip instead, but Facebook does not seem to cooperate with my system, so for whatever reason, right? Now, obviously, this is about a mother killing her child, and there's been a lot of that lately. I've been showing a lot of those kind of clips lately because it's been happening a lot, and it really does speak to mental illness. But why am I playing this on a video advocating for the humanity of Black men? When I saw this clip, or the clip and the articles that went with it, I didn't hear anybody ask about how this would impact the father. The most I heard is people chastising a father that we don't know anything about, right? As if he stood by and let it happen and knew it was going to go down or any of that. 90% of the time, women have custody of children after a divorce. And in many instances, you're lucky if you know where the hell she lives, let alone do you have access, right? And we know that in every other circumstance, but somehow, when it comes to a mentally ill mother who does decide to hurt her children, we give more critique to the father, not knowing anything about him whatsoever, than we do the actual mother or the family of the mother, who's in far more contact with her in many instances, right? But let's go into this story a little bit, see what else we can find. The dispatcher asked what happened. According to police report, Baxter claims she strangled her at first, but when that didn't work, she stabbed her in the chest and neck. Dear God. According to the report, officers arrived at the apartment on Northeast 163rd Street and found Baxter in the living room wearing a white robe. They also found the child on the ground with several deep stab wounds in her chest, neck, and face. The girl was pronounced dead at the scene. Police said the knife was found next to the child's body. A motive for killing wasn't revealed, as Baxter refused to speak with police after being taken into custody. Baxter was being held without bond at the Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center in Miami-Dade. The thing about this, though, there have been cases recently where Black men have gone to the police, gone to the authorities and said, my baby mother has psychological issues. She's having mental illness issues. I'm worried about my children. I can't find her. She's not responding. And when I did hear from her, she doesn't sound right. I can't get to her. I need to get to my kids. And those men have been pushed away, often by law enforcement, because they didn't have legal custody and couldn't get it. Lead attorney dropped some ill information in the last few days that I posted on my Facebook page about how difficult it can be for men to get custody. And that's men who can afford to take their baby mothers to court. Right? I'm not saying that happened in this situation. I'm saying I've seen those cases happen. In this situation, we have no information on the father, but I'll have people who will give me more critique about the father that isn't even involved in this story. You don't even know if this man has ever been told he had a daughter. We know absolutely nothing about him, and people will go out their way to critique him more than they address her or the family involved or around this person. And this man, at some point, if he is involved in the child's life, has to find out that his daughter is gone. And there's been a lot of these cases lately. And I know this is a response in many respects to the environment, to the loss of jobs. Black women are the most evicted group, right? Especially during this pandemic. We know there are all kinds of issues tied to that increase stress and probably exacerbate mental illness. I'm not making fun of this. I'm not making light of it. I'm pissed about the loss of life for children, and we got more. This ain't the end of it. But at the end of the day, nobody talks about how this would impact a father who may actually love his daughter and not be able to get legal custody, even when the mother is displaying erratic and problematic behavior. All kinds of problems with this. As Clutch says, quick to jump to conclusions about someone, Black men are only good as our next mistake. Damn. That's cold. Right? These are the kind of things we're looking at. Next case, I'm gonna warn you, is no better. Tragic find: mom and two sons, aged 3 and 9, found frozen to death after going on the run, believing people were trying to kill her. Similar case in the sense that we're dealing with mental illness. This is the Sun magazine. This is dated January 17th of 2023. Right? This is today. Right? Mother of 3 and her 2 young sons have been found dead from hypothermia in a field. Monica Latrice Kennedy, 35, fled on foot in Pontiac, Michigan with her daughter Lily, age 10, and her 2 sons, Malik, age 3, and Kyle, age 9, during a mental health episode because she was convinced someone was out to kill her, according to Oakland County authorities. There she goes right there. Right. There with one of her kids. Kennedy believed someone was trying to kill her, and everybody was in on it, including the police. Sheriff Michael Bouchard said it on Monday. Family members attempted to get her help, but she refused, and she fled with the children. Kennedy had an apartment, but wanted to be on foot to hide. After wandering around town in the cold since at least Friday, Kennedy instructed her kids to lie down in a field to rest, although the temperatures were not sustainable to do so. The average temperature in Michigan for January can range anywhere from 18 degrees Fahrenheit to 34 degrees, according to the National Weather Service. Police received occasional reports of people oddly walking around while underdressed for the weather, but they did not think anything of it. The case was brought to the attention of the police after the daughter luckily woke up in the field on Sunday and knocked on a nearby door to inform someone of what happened. She explained when she woke up, she discovered her other family members were dead. This 10-year-old girl was the only one that woke up. Her 2 brothers died along with her mother. 10-year-old girl has since been admitted to a hospital and is currently in stable condition. An autopsy confirmed Kennedy and her sons died of hypothermia, and their deaths have been ruled accidental. Kennedy's mother told police she believes Kennedy's mental health episode stemmed from the father of her children being murdered in 2021 and the alleged killer being on trial recently. Kennedy was showing signs of being mentally unstable for several weeks, but refused any form of help like being committed or talking to someone. Police have contacted Child Protective Services, and the surviving 10-year-old girl is expected to be taken in by other family members when she is released from the hospital. Bouchard insisted the deaths could have been avoided if someone would have contacted officials that Kennedy was suffering mentally. You don't question mama in this culture. When the family knew a crisis was developing, if they'd called us or called mental health care providers, then we would have popped up assets to look for the kids and the mom, he said during the conference. We would have known it was something more than maybe somebody was walking down the street and didn't have a coat on. Case encouraged Bouchard to call on federal officials to provide more funding for mental health services. This is what we're dealing with. Right? Her 3-year-old and 9-year-old sons gone. But people, I'm starting to see, most particularly in regard to women, I'm starting to see more and more women cracking. I'm starting to see more and more mental health episodes like this. These kids passing away. Let's take it to another level. I'm going to mess with you tonight. If you have a beating heart, some of this is going to get to you. You can find this one on abc7chicago.com. This is dated from 2021. This is August. Indiana woman accused of chopping off dad's legs in front of kids. Chopping off dad's legs in front of kids. Now, the title doesn't do it justice, but let's get into it. South Bend, Elkhart, Indiana. A woman is accused in the gruesome murder of her kid's father. Not only is Thessalonica Allen accused of killing her husband before chopping up his body and putting it in bags, but police said she also asked her 2 children to help. According to the court documents obtained by WSBT, Allen shot her husband, Randy Allen, inside this LaPorte, Indiana apartment last Tuesday. According to investigators, she then cut off his legs, stuffed him into a bag, and had plans to put him in his car and light it on fire. Right? This is unbelievable, said neighbor Benjamin Wilson. We just never thought something like this would happen in LaPorte. Allen allegedly told police that Randy choked and attacked her, which is why she shot him. Now, just wait. We'll get to the bottom of that. Two children who were at home, who were home at the time, told police they heard a loud bang and saw their father laying on the ground, asking them to call 911, but their mother told them not to. Police said she then put his body in her daughter's closet. Investigators said Allen woke up her kids in the middle of the night and asked them to help carry his body out of the closet and put it into the car. Court documents also show they tried several times but said he was too heavy. The next day, Allen used an axe to cut off Randy's legs and had her children help put him into a bag and clean up the crime scene. Her husband's family is beside themselves, were devastated, so on and so forth. I'm going to give you more on this story in a second. Just want to get through this article so we get the basics down. Police searched the apartment along with his body. They found a handwritten to-do list. It included things like spray expletive in his face, hit him in the knee with a hammer, hit him with a hammer and stab him, roll up body in sheets and plastic bags. So this is killing me, said the victim's mother, Teresa Tyler. We don't have that kind of stuff in our family. We love each other. The autopsy found that the bullet entered Randy's spinal cord area and he was likely not able to move and bled to death. Allen is set to be in court for initial hearing on Friday. Randy's family is also planning a vigil. I'm going to give you some more information. Let me see if I can pull this picture. So let me find this for you real quick. I forgot to pull this up earlier, but there's some other dimensions to this story that this particular article isn't giving us. And I think you guys might find useful to know. So bear with me for one more second. I think there's two pictures that we can look at. It gives you, because I'm surprised this particular article is sharing what little it is. I mean, I thought it would be sharing a little more than that. All right. There we go. All right. So this is who we're talking about here. And what this article is leaving out is that there was more that went on. Now, first and foremost, what apparently happened, according to other articles that I've read on this subject, was that he was helping the kids with homework before she got home. And as he was helping the kids with homework, he opened up a computer screen and found that somebody had been researching how to kill their husband. So that was the first thing. So when she got home, he confronted her and they started to argue. And then they decided to take the argument into the bedroom. So this told us not to have it in front of the kids. They go into the bedroom, they argue even more. And then everybody hears the shot. So she shot him in the back. That's the thing. That's the first thing. And when the kids came in, he asked them to call police. She told them not to. He bled out and died at that point. The body lay there. They couldn't move it significantly. She then chopped it up. Still couldn't move it. Apparently, at some point, she called one of her baby daddies, or her baby daddy to one of her kids, at least, whomever this was, an ex, and asked him to come help. Apparently, he was the one that called the police, according to one of the other articles I ran across on this subject. And she wasn't home when the police came. I think she was in the parking lot of a Home Depot when they found her. And the very first thing she said was she had been abused and shot him in self-defense. But the kids verified that not only had he not abused her, he had not put hands on her, that he never had. Now, nothing I've run across yet actually explains why she felt the need to get rid of him or kill him. But that's when they also found a list of instructions that she wrote out for herself on how to kill this man. That's what we're talking about. This happened in 2021. This is August 2021. Right? There you go. That's the couple right there. Apparently had not had a track record of abuse, was helping the kids with homework. She was trying to figure out how to kill him. That's what we know. These are the kinds of cases that nobody cares to examine, to look at. Actually, let me see if I can give you guys one clear picture here of her. I had another one. I should have brought that up as well. You guys can see who we're talking about. I don't know. I think they were married. I'm not sure. Right? But she called her ex to help remove the body. The ex got there, of course, responded to the smell. And when he finally found out what she had done, he called the police on her. There she goes. Thessalonica, I guess. I don't know how you pronounce it. Thessalonica Allen. Now, I find it interesting how quickly abuse came up in her narrative, because I think this has become a go-to. I think women know that they can use this term very arbitrarily, and there won't even be a requirement for evidence. You know what I mean? It's enough for a woman to simply say, I was abused, to justify any kind of behavior. And she did that very thing. The only thing that gave us an alternate perspective was her own children, who said that man never laid hands on her. In that argument or prior. And she wanted to chop him up into pieces. Right? This is what we're looking at. Now, as far as some of the data on this, let me go ahead and share with you some information here, just so we're on the same page about what it is men actually experience. Let me see. So you guys can see the title a little bit. Number of murder offenders in the U.S. in 2020 by gender, right? And so you can see just murder offenders in general. 8,977 are male. 1,320 are female. 1,338 are unknown, right? So just some basic information that I think might be useful as we look over some of this. You know, I want to always arm you guys with some relevant information. This is another chart that I think you might find interesting. Number of murder victims in the U.S. in 2020 by race, ethnicity, and gender. That is the whole title. Apologize if you can't see it. One of the things I do want to show you that you may find of interest is when you look through the list, male, female, white, black, other, unknown, Hispanic, not Hispanic, unknown. When you look through, now, not Hispanic or Latino is it seems pretty generic. But when you actually look at the breakdown, the total number of men that died, 14,146 who were murdered, 3,573 who were murdered. The largest number for any one group outside of not Hispanic or Latino is black men, 8,469. When you measure that against population size, that number becomes a lot larger. So black men die at the highest numbers, at least in 2020, in regard to being murder victims. So I'm just some basic information, but let's talk more specifically about intimate partner homicide. We're just going to put some numbers out here. You can screenshot this stuff and go through it in more detail later if you so choose. Right? The NVDRS system that I used here to actually look at the actual numbers of intimate partner homicides in the United States as far as the black community is concerned only goes up to 2019. Now this chart goes to 2017. I'll show you the 2 other years after that. Now you will find most consistently that there, yes, are more black female victims than male. And part of what we're knowing since 2003 is that the number of states reporting begin to tick these numbers up. So it's not necessarily easily determined that these numbers are going up because more people are being killed. It's that you have more states reporting. But I want you to actually see these numbers because people are so comfortable talking about how black males just are. I want you to see the actual numbers according to, right, the CDC. Right? You can see the numbers here. Right? Just 2014, 77 black women, 66 black males. Right? 2015. Now, this is when 10 more states started reporting after 2015. Right? 142 black females, 78 black males. Now, mind you, this is out of what, 43 plus million black folk per year. So whenever people try to hit you with this en masse idea, like black men are slaughtering black women en masse, this is what I want you to remember. These are the actual numbers. Right? 2017, 172 black females, 93 black males. Now, here's another thing. When it comes to proxy violence, right? When it comes to where a woman can use law enforcement or a vigilante or another person to assassinate their man, that's not considered intimate partner homicide. Especially if nobody finds out that she's hired somebody. And again, you go back to Warren Farrell's early work in the 1980s. One of the things he talked about is rich women pay assassins, poor women use sex to manipulate somebody into doing it. But at the bottom line, when a man kills another man in the interests of a woman, it's not considered intimate partner homicide, especially if he's never caught. It just becomes one man, it just becomes one man killing another. And if he is caught, again, one man killing another. There are very few incidents where you actually find out that she's initiated this and she's actually charged. They can get charged for instigating this, but there's a lot that needs to happen, right, for her to actually get charged. At the end of the day, most of the time, I would argue it's one man who killed another and the killer's not caught. And when the killer is caught, it's just another guy. So these numbers here do not reflect the methods that men and women use. Men generally commit abuse and or homicide in intimate partner situations by their own hand indirectly. Women use other means. Statistically, women are more apt to use weapons. They're more apt to start violence in conflicts. But what nobody else talks about is they're more apt to reach out to others to initiate violence on their behalf. Proxy violence. So even though we're looking at these numbers, they don't actually reflect how many men actually are killed because she instigated and or planned another person to do that for her. But even if we don't pay any attention to that, notice these numbers are not astronomical. You're not looking at 20,000, but all these kinds of statements about black men being murderers. Look at the numbers we're talking about. Less than 300 people out of 43 plus million. And I'm not saying anybody should die. And I don't mean to, I'm not suggesting to dismiss the importance of these lives that are lost. Not at all. I'm not saying that murder is justified because the numbers are low. What I'm doing is contextualizing, because a lot of the time when I hear black men talked about as violence offenders, people like to use ratios and they like to get generic, but they will not give you raw numbers because they don't want you to go, what? That's it? Here's the latter 2 years. Now remember, CDC at this point stopped at 2019, so this is pre-pandemic. But I wanted to show you, right, from 2003, according to the data available from the CDC, in 2018, you had 266. Now, mind you, this is up to 42 states reporting. So the number of states reporting went up. So again, it's not necessarily that more people are dying, it's that we now have more states reporting. So at 42 states reporting, you got 267 women in 2018 who were killed, 134 men. But what people will say to you is, there's twice as many women being killed as men. They'll give you those kinds of, ratios, but they won't tell you it's a couple hundred people out of 43 plus million. Stop it. And of course, you got 2019, 248 black female victims, 125 black male. You want to do the numbers, divide 43 million into 248. And tell me what percentage of the black community are being killed like this. Better yet, you can take the percentage of black women. You can take the raw number of black women and divide it into 248, and that should tell you just what fraction of black women are being killed by their spouses. As a good colleague once said to me, I think I had posted this at the bottom of this page if you didn't see it in yellow. The sociologist colleague of mine said, you're more likely to die in a flood or be struck by lightning than be killed by an intimate partner. So we just want to put some of this in context. Yeah. And some years the differences are low. And as a matter of fact, if you go to other time periods, you'll find that there were more men killed than women. You really want to, really go there. More men killed than women. Look at the man not, Tommy Curry's text, and he'll show you different periods of time when intimate partner violence or homicide was higher for men than women. This is not a given every year. But I kind of wanted you to see some of this data so we can situate this, because really what we're talking about here today is that we're looking at everything from psychological abuse to physical abuse to the impact of mental illness. Now, in one case where a mother stabbed her child, I was talking about how we know nothing about what the father, what the father is, what his situation is. We don't hear anything from him. He's not interviewed. His name isn't even brought up. We don't know if there's a man out there who's the father who was never told. We don't know if he just completely walked away. We don't know if he was a loving, supportive father that couldn't get custody. We don't know anything about him. And so I'm talking about the indirect effect of something like mental illness on the loss of a child and how Black men experience it. And one of the things you notice in the report that I read, he's not mentioned. Even if he's an active father, not always mentioned. His pain, not always mentioned. In the other circumstance, the woman that killed her 2 sons, father had already died. And those 2 boys lost their lives at the hands of their mother. And that little girl was the only one to survive and lost her whole family, right? But we're looking particularly about, how these things, from mental illness to psychological abuse to physical abuse, intimate partner violence, intimate partner homicide, impact Black men, alongside some of the early cases I brought up where you saw this in fiction, you saw it in media. Sometimes fictional, sometimes world star quality. And in either circumstance, it's not only dismissed, but laughed at when it comes to what Black men receive. See, this thing I'm trying to get at. In some of the clips you saw, people were laughing. In other articles we read, the fathers, men involved weren't even mentioned, right? And what concerns me is how many Black men are comfortable with this. We will participate in the laughter and the dismissal that we're already subject to from the larger society, that we're already subject to within the Black community. We participate in our own dismissal. I did a show over a year ago on what I call Black andromortality. And I talked about the levels and rates of death in regard to Black men for over 10 different causes. And the thing that got me about that was how little conversation I'd seen about that. I'm actually writing an article, or actually an essay for a journal on that very concept, how Black men can die more than anybody for a number of different things, not just homicide. And it's just par for the course, even among Black men. This is why Tommy Curry's work on racism as misandric aggression is so important, because it's a game changer in terms of how we start to understand threat against Black men and how much of it is framed around and targeted toward Black men themselves. But part of what I'm concerned about is not only how racism from the outside society is misandric aggression, it also impacts us intra-communally, right? Within the Black community. It becomes part and parcel to our own misandric isolationism. In other words, it becomes part and parcel to how we become invisible, even within our own communities, when we're dying more. Doesn't matter, not even to us. And that's the point. If we don't give a damn, who the hell will? There has to be a point where we actually stop accepting this and begin to challenge it by giving a damn. That's what's important at this juncture. We have to give a damn about this. But part of the problem is not just that no one respects our loss of life, including us, and no one respects our abuse, including us, is that it also manifests in other ways. I can't tell y'all how many brothers that reach out to me and talk about actually being in good relationships, but really having difficulty receiving affection and love. This is one of the things that I think is actually pretty interesting about this whole passport bros movement, where guys are actually going outside of the country to find, suitable partners. One of the kind of, lesser discussed aspects of that is actually receiving affection and respect. Now, we're in one vein going out looking for that, but there is something to be said about conditioning yourself to receive it, particularly if you're not used to it. And I'm not talking about disrespect because you're weak or incapable or you're not a man or you refuse, you're lazy or no. I'm talking about the average everyday cat who does handle his responsibilities, but is still not extended a basic modicum of respect within his own family, especially if he comes out of a gynapotestal family structure, or what some people have the shorthand have called a coven. Come from a family full of women who don't value masculinity, doesn't have anything to do with how you carry yourself. You may find yourself just really not respected simply because you exist and you're not a woman. So when you have these brothers looking elsewhere for respect, maybe even love, some guys are just going out there to have an encounter with the feminine that doesn't have to lead to fucking trauma. Some guys are looking for wives, right? So you have the whole spectrum of what men are looking for. Often the whole thing is dismissed as men just looking for prostitutes. But I think it's far more nuanced than that. When I talk to these brothers, when I listen to what they're talking about, yeah, some are looking for sex. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But some are looking to have an encounter. They want to engage the feminine without it having to be a toxic engagement. Some just want to know that they can have an encounter with a lovely woman that doesn't have to end in some soul-shattering crap. I say, what I'm saying here is that because we have a problem, many of us, not having been conditioned to not only see a sense of value in ourselves, but even being able to receive affection and love. Some men get uncomfortable when extended affection and love because it's not something they're used to. So my hope for brothers that are traveling and looking for that, or looking in different ways than they have before within the US for that type of thing, that one of the things we do is we take seriously the need to recondition ourselves around receiving the very thing we're looking for and being very clear about what we're looking for. Some of us don't know how to articulate that what we are actually looking for is not just, what others, will dismissively tell us we're looking for. Oh, you just want, what's the phrases we hear? You just want white women. You just want sex. Well, some people do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's what they choose to do. But I think there are many black men who are looking for more than just that. They're looking to be treated like fucking human beings, to be desired, to be valued. That's key. To be valued, to be respected. I think there's a lot of black men that don't know what that feels like, and they want to. But I'm going to tell you, brothers, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Something as simple as receiving love may sound easy, but it often isn't if you've never had it before. It can be a trial to condition yourself to receiving something you've never been taught how to receive. Now you're looking for it. Some of you have walked away from disrespectful situations in an effort to find it, but it's kind of like working out. It's a muscle that you got to develop. It doesn't mean just because you walked away from disrespect that you're necessarily ready to receive what you're looking for. And there's some that may even go so far as to traumatize the women they're looking to gain these new experiences because they're not used to it. So there's a conditioning process that I want brothers who are interested in traveling to give themselves permission to go through and walk through it purposely and clearly. If you're not used to receiving a certain type of presence from the feminine, actually take that into account. Reflect on that and decide on what you want when you leave or wherever it is you're going to get it. And when you do receive it, observe your own responses to it. I know brothers that would call me in the middle of being treated like kings. One good brother of mine, I remember, he would call me on trips with his lady. He'd be like, she prepared this and she did that. She cooked this and she laid it out. I said, well, what the hell are you doing calling me? He was like, because his first reaction was waiting for the other shoe to drop. His first reaction was how she was going to mess with him. Not because she had done anything, but because of what he had been used to experiencing most of his life. And he's not alone. I just bring up that isolated incident. But I've talked to dozens of men that have had similar traumatic experiences. And we don't call it traumatic. We just call it life. But the other reason that I'm bringing this up and I'm talking about this is because I've discussed this subject personally, interpersonally, relationship-wise, and I'm not a relationship, person. I don't deal with relationships in that way. I don't give relationship advice. I've talked about this politically and economically, right? The rise of Black women as the new buffer class, right? Where they serve as gatekeepers, and they've been in the Black community in many ways has been gentrified around the idea of Black women moving into the middle class. You know, I've talked about these issues with Black men and women in a variety of different ways. But the main reason that I'm bringing this up today is because, and I wanted to do it yesterday, but I got caught up in dealing with, you know, Martin Luther King's birthday. We talk about the civil rights movement. We talk about the fight against racism. We talk about integrationism. We talk about the sacrifices that previous generations have made to confront the Black community's main problems, right? If you look into the works of the civil rights movement, you deal with, you know, confronting racism in terms of policy, in terms of courts. You know, we could talk about the Black nationalist movements that provided under the table threat to let white America know that there is another way this can be approached if you don't take us seriously. We could talk about class issues, and you can look at the Black Marxists that have pushed that analysis, the way we've internalized class, and the way we treat each other. There's so many different ways that the Black community has addressed our situation. But you know the one way we haven't adequately actually talked about misandric aggression. I mean, we talked about gender. We saw the rise of feminist movements and LGBT movements, queer movements, advocating for very specific groups. We talked about how all these various groups have experienced things, but we haven't adequately talked about what Black males experience. And I think it's the missing piece to the puzzle. I think this goes into interpersonal relationships all the way to institutional treatment or mistreatment. That's why I wanted to talk about this week, most particularly in regard to MLK's birthday, because I don't do this just to talk shit about Black women or any other group. It's not about that. That's a way to dismiss what I'm saying that some people are quite comfortable with. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing this because there's a whole segment to the Black experience that has been swept under the rug. It's ugly. Nobody wants to talk about it. And many of the groups, many of the organizations, many of the movements in the Black community want to sidestep it altogether because they're worried about pissing Black women off. I don't care if you're talking about organizations or movements. Many of those movements rely on Black women. They cater to Black women. And because they cater to Black women, they're very much afraid of losing Black women's support. So we get a very dishonest approach to what's going on with Black men. And so that's the one missing piece to the puzzle on what Black America endures that nobody wants to pull out and look at. And so what was left is for Black men to do it themselves. And this is Black men on any level, right? This is everything from the educated elite to what BGS calls the unwashed masses. Everybody, you know, these social media has kind of leveled the playing field in terms of access. And so you really had a grassroots movement of men who decided to have a conversation with other Black men about their own experiences. And because it wasn't authorized by the academic elite, it was considered uncouth, misogynist, violent, and every other term you could think of, every other negative term. But this movement that I've been seeing grow in this last decade has been grassroots. It's been coming out however it comes out. And brothers are articulating their positions from wherever they stand. It's not always pretty. It's not always cute. It's not for public consumption. And I don't give a damn. Because appeasing the mainstream was never what this was about anyway. It started out with Black men just talking about what they were most dealing with. And for many, that was relationships. And it's important that we acknowledge that. Because how are you going to address society when the person laying next to you is a problem? And she's willing to use institutions to control you, to attack you, to express whatever she's unhappy about towards you. And it leaves you with permanent damage, whether it's access to your kids or long-term incarceration for things that you haven't done. Simply that is why the starting point in this manosphere began with relationships. Now, believe it or not, it has evolved into a lot of different areas. But relationships remains one of the key areas that it's still dealt with, and it's important. It is. Because again, that's the person next to you. That's the person you might be having kids with. That's the person that can most leverage institutions against you simply because they can. So that's going to continue to be the case. But the reason I bring it up is because I'm looking at this from the lens of exploring Black society. And in the Black community, when we identify the issues that we're up against, one of the things I've noticed is how often Black male experience gets ignored. So my contribution to the Black male experience, to the Black community experience, is to pull this unwanted thing from under the rug and expose it. Look at the stats, look at the data, look at the history, and actually examine Black male life, whether it's pretty or not, regardless of who's innocent or guilty. And pull it out and look at it, because it is the missing piece to this component, to this puzzle that is Black America. And in honoring MLK's birthday, to me, studying the lives of Black men beyond stereotype is necessary. And I hope those of you who support this channel, support those who are doing this kind of work, will continue to do so. Because this is the piece that nobody wants to talk about. So we just went through and examined at least 9 different cases, 8 or 9, that show us the various types of disrespect, abuse, and even homicide around Black male treatment. And there are a lot more cases like that that we're going to examine over time. So I appreciate your support and your patience. Please remember to continue to support the channel so we can continue to bring you this work. And let me know if you have anything to add. I definitely love hearing in the comments stories, articles, or responses to some of the specific stories that I told in terms of what you've seen, what you've experienced, that add to our understanding of what it is Black men deal with, and Black boys for that matter. It's important. So appreciate the support. I'll see you soon. Peace.